Welcome back to Newsfeed PM. I am Masachaba Kumalo. A recent News 24 article has painted a grim picture of the state of water and sanitation infrastructure in the city of Johannesburg. According to the article, residents are bracing over warnings of a looming water and sanitation crisis. The Johannesburg Water Business Plan shows a 60 billion rand financing deficit for the next 10 years, which would likely push the grid and related infrastructure towards collapse. Already, the city is experiencing severe water supply challenges. And to discuss this, I'm now joined by Ntshavheni Mukhwevho, who is the Managing Director of Joburg Water. Thank you so much for your time and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chava, and good afternoon to you and the viewers out there.
Do we have a water crisis?
Not necessarily, Ms. Chava, and I'll be able to explain to you. Because these figures, and of course other figures that were quoted in the article, are very technical figures that one always needs to really understand the context around those figures. An example, the 64 billion that you are referring to, which we'll need to invest in the next 10 years, is not necessarily only to deal with the existing infrastructure. I'm sure you've seen that in the same article, including our business plan, we talk about the infrastructure backlog of about 24 billion. If you look at that 24 billion and we really unpack it, you'll be able to see that it's not only about the existing infrastructure, it is also about areas where we need to bring new infrastructure, because as a water utility, we always have to plan ahead and make sure that we really provide the necessary bulk infrastructure which will be able to facilitate economic growth in the city.
All right, let's talk about the 64 billion rand that's needed. Is Joburg Water and CoJ, are you looking at ways to finance that?
Yes, we are looking at various ways. If you go to our business plan, you'll be able to see that historically, of course, we finance our infrastructure through allocation of through the council, where historically we've been investing about R1 billion on average. So if you look at our business plan, we really clearly articulate that we want to venture into a new way of funding infrastructure for water in the city. How are we aiming to do that? One, there are areas, of course, around the water demand management where we are starting to talk about the concept called Triple P, as well as the other concept that are more focusing on performance management, whereby the main issue around performance management contract is that we want to bring private sector to help us, where of course we can't be able to raise those funding ourselves, and what the private sector will do at the end of the day is to make sure that they bring the necessary required capital, and of course they will be able to enter an agreement where we can be able to give them the necessary return that they require over a period. So the main two issues that we are exploring, one is the Triple P, which will be able to bring in some of the mega projects that we have, which of course they are included in that 64 billion rand, especially around the expansion of wastewater treatment works and so on. Two is the issue where we want to zoom in into our water demand management or non-revenue water space, which of course you may have seen that is a challenge as well, where we can be able to say how do we partner with those that have got appetite to invest in water space through what we call performance-based contracts.
All right, so it's also been reported that you failed to meet your annual infrastructure renewal rate of 1.5%. Is this true?
Certainly, and that's the reason why we have the backlog of about 24 billion. But as I've indicated to you up front, 24 billion doesn't necessarily mean that all in all it's about the existing infrastructure. And I just want to illustrate this point. If you look at our both water and sewer network, which is about 25,000 kilometers, and you zoom in to say, what is it that will really be required to replace the entire 25,000 kilometers? And what is it that really we should have replaced and we haven't replaced yet? You'll be able to see that indeed what we haven't replaced yet is only about in the region of about 5 to 7%, not necessarily possibly how people may interpret those numbers. And the reason why we have not been able to meet that 1.5%, of course, is the issue of where we've been having a challenge of underfunding historically, which we aim to resolve it through some of the concepts that I've articulated earlier, where they'll help us to be able to raise more funding.
All right. Thanks, Ntshavheni. You know, here at Newsroom, we're not just about getting information straight from the sources, but also about finding solutions around the problem. So we took it to the streets, and of course, the lived experience of South Africans being the most crucial, because we are the people who are affected. At the end of the day, we threw out the question to the people in the northern Johannesburg area. There are some questions from the ground, one of which is around blockages. Now, there is a neighborhood that has had leaks for 15 months with no assistance. Is this an issue of a lack of personnel? What could be the cause of this, and how do we fix it?
So there are two things I think that I'm picking up from that question. One, we have what we call service standard, and these are the turnaround that we have contracted with the resident of the City of Johannesburg. Whenever you report a blockage, our aim is to make sure that we respond within 24 hours. Of course, what we always encourage the residents is that please, whenever they see any form of service breakdown, they must report that so that we can be able to respond.
All right, just to intervene, they have been reporting. And apparently, like, this is an entire neighborhood that has been reporting. 15 months later, still no intervention, Ntshavheni. What happens now?
No, we will need to get more details, of course, so that we can be able to follow up on that. But what I can be able to explain to you, especially around some of those, a typical example is that you may find that team are responding, but of course the line blocks again, or the best occurs again, because ultimately what we need to do is to replace that pipeline. As I've indicated to you, that there are certain parts of the city where we have infrastructure backlog, which of course ultimately we want to replace that, and hence we are looking at various ways of doing that.
All right, so over and above the attempts that they have made, what do they do now? What is the next step?
The next step, of course, the issues that they can bring into our attention, of course, through our stakeholder relations, as well as our ward councillor, because some of the closer working arrangement that we have with the community through ward councillors, and then we can be able to look at those issues that communities are still not satisfied.
All right. There's also an area that happens to be a very protected area, that is a bird sanctuary. And, I mean, there have been reports of contamination in the water. I mean, I'm talking about dead crabs, dead birds, dead river mongoose, all of which are affecting the community in the northern part of Johannesburg, in particular with this question. Now, is it true that there are no chemicals in stock to spray onto surfaces to contain contamination? Is this true?
Let me explain to you what we do around blockages. Whenever there's a blockage, our team, of course, we dispatch them to go and clear that blockage. Half of the time, they'll be able to clear it manually. Another half of the time, they'll be able to bring machinery, like the jetting truck, that will be able to assist us to do that. And, of course, after we clear that blockage, it depends on how long that blockage has been running. There are instances where we are able to clean straight away, and there are instances that we'll have to come the very next day and be able to clean. Because, of course, while still, areas where the blockage was or the blockage has been running, it's very saturated, it may be difficult for us to clean. So the very next day we come back and clean. Of course, there are chemicals that we use in making sure that we put those chemicals around the area that we've cleaned. So it's a standard operating procedure that in all our teams around the city we expect them to do.
All right, fantastic. I'm not sure if I'm satisfied on the answer. I don't know what to say when I have to come back to these residents who are, quite frankly, even prepared to clean up the water themselves, given the support from Joburg Water and CoJ. So in terms of the water itself, remember, especially if we are talking the water sources, the streams, the river out there, or small dams or ponds that may exist within the community. Of course, if the blockage that have run for a period of time and end up really contaminating the water bodies, we really have a process where also we are able to bring chemicals so that we can be able to rehabilitate that area. And it's a process that, of course, we assess it blockage per blockage or incident per incident to say, do we need to bring that process that we're able to assist, or it's a blockage that didn't run really for a period of time where it has really contaminated the environment in such a way that it requires that operation. All right, Ntshavheni, will you at least share those details with me so that we can perhaps share with the greater public out there on the platforms to escalate to in the case of residents that have experienced a 15-month-long wait?
Yes, certainly.
All right. I appreciate your time, and thank you so much for coming to Newzroom Afrika.
Thank you for the opportunity.